What is up, everybody? It is JT Sports. I'm here with my Pittsburgh Steelers 2021 training camp preview. Going to be going over some certain things to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers during training camp, players to watch, potential position battles. We have been covering training camp pretty hard over here on JT Sports. Make sure that you guys go ahead and hit that training camp preview playlist. I've previewed the Patriots, the Falcons, the Raiders, and several other teams with other NFL YouTubers. So make sure that you guys go ahead and check that out. And before we get started, make sure that you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel because I upload NFL videos and college football videos daily. Also, hitting the like button helps out with the YouTube algorithm because YouTube has kind of been screwing me over. They don't really want to put me in the browse section and whatnot. So help me out. Hit that like button. Share the video. Let's get into it. So I want to start off with the offensive line, which is the biggest question mark for the Steelers heading into training camp this season. You have left tackle, who you pretty much going to have my guy Chuck starting at left tackle there. Hopefully, he should have a pretty solid year. You also have Dan Moore, who is going to be right behind him, which Dan Moore probably could play left tackle or right tackle. He's a rookie. I'm really high on him. There are a lot of Steelers fans out there who are really high on him. Then at offensive guard, you have Trey Turner, who you just signed not too long ago, who is going to be replacing longtime Steelers David DeCastro, who recently got released. He is expected to retire. And you have left guard Kevin Dawson. Now, I heard a rumor about Kevin Dawson that he was overweight, that he hasn't really been putting in a lot of work over the offseason so far, and that he could be in a potential position battle. Now, I don't know if this is true. I don't really think it is true, but that is something to take into consideration. So make sure that you guys heavily keep a watch on Kevin Dawson. And I want to see how many reps is the guy behind Kevin Dawson going to get? Because if Kevin Dawson, if this is true, if he did come in overweight and that he could be in a potential position battle, I probably expect to see some stories when training camp starts for Pittsburgh around Kevin Dawson splitting first team reps with somebody else. Then you have the center position, which we all expect rookie out of Illinois to be the starter there, Kendrick Green. I think he's going to be really good there. Then at right tackle, you have Zach Bonner, which I think Zach Bonner, Banner, wherever everybody wants to consider his last name being called, I think he's a really good right tackle. I think a lot of people don't know how good he is because he hasn't really been on the field all that much due to injury concerns. But when he's on the field and he's healthy, I think he's a really good, serviceable offensive tackle in this league. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong because I've seen a lot of people saying that he may be the worst offensive tackle in the NFL. And that may be true because we haven't really seen him on the field all that much. But I think when he's healthy, he's really good. So for the offensive line, I don't really see any position battles. I think the starters are pretty much all solidified. We may see Kevin Dawson get into a little competition, but I think that's just going to be to push him, to force him to work a little bit harder there. So I think the offensive line is pretty much set in stone when it comes to the starters. You're going to have my guy Chucks at left tackle, Kevin Dawson at left guard, Kendrick Green at center, Trey Turner at right guard, and right tackle is going to be Zach Banner there. Wide receiver, there is a ton of talent, a tons of depth there. Last year, the Steelers wide receivers had some growing pains, which is expected when you have a young group of wide receivers. You have Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson is going into his third year in the NFL. He was in year 2 last season. Chase Claypool is going into year 2. He had a pretty solid rookie year. He could have had a great rookie season, but it seems like the Steelers forgot to throw him the ball during the second half of the season. Then you have Juju Smith-Schuster, who I think that his season was pretty good, but a lot of people don't realize how solid it was because of his on-the-field antics with the whole TikTok fiasco and whatnot, dancing on other teams' logos. But Juju had a really nice year. Now, I've seen some reports about Juju wanting to get more work outside. The majority of his snaps were played inside of that slot position. So keep an eye on that. Will we see Juju line up more outside? I doubt it. I think Deontay Johnson has that spot pretty much solidified. He's a really great route runner. what a lot of people don't know about Deontay Johnson is that if he didn't have so many drops last year, he probably could have easily went over 1,200 yards. Like, Deontay Johnson is super talented. He has the talent and the potential to be one of the best in the game. He reminds me similar to Devontae Adams. He is a really great route runner. He has a lot of different releases. So if he can improve his ability to catch the football this year, which I believe that he will, he's going to end up having a really great season this year. You also can say the same thing for Chase Claypool. He's more of your 50-50 ball wide receiver. You want to throw him the ball downfield. He is a great deep threat. And we saw some of that earlier in the season, but he kind of got canceled out of the offense in the later half of the season. But I think he's going to have a really big year as well. So the Steelers have like 2 wide receivers who can easily go for over 1,200 yards. Then you also can't forget about Juju as well. You got Ray McLeod, who is more of a special teamer. He's more of a return specialist. Kickoffs, punt returns, and whatnot. But he also got a little bit of action last year at wide receiver in a couple of games. You got James Washington, who I believe that James Washington was the most clutch wide receiver on this roster. He was the most consistent wide receiver on this team, and I think he was the best wide receiver last year. When you needed James Washington to step up and make a play, he did. He made several big plays last season, which kept the drive alive on 3rd down. Like, I think James Washington was really good last season, and if he ended up leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers, I feel like he could be a really great wide receiver, a great number 2 somewhere else, similar to what happened to Emmanuel Sanders when he left Pittsburgh and signed with the Denver Broncos. We saw how great he was. Now, a guy who you guys need to keep your eye on, who a lot of people haven't been talking about, you may not know this guy's name, is Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson was an undrafted free agent out of Buffalo. I definitely think he has a spot on this roster. Now, he's not a burner. He's not going to make a lot of things happen after the catch, but he has great hands. I think that he could end up making this roster. So keep an eye on Anthony Johnson during preseason for Pittsburgh. Moving on to running back. Running back, we already know it's going to be Najee Harris, the rookie out of Alabama, drafted 24th overall in the 1st round of this past year's NFL draft. He's been making a lot of noise during OTAs and mini camps. All I've been seeing is Najee Harris all plastered all over Steeler websites and Steeler blogs about how great he has been. I saw a clip of him going viral when he was doing some kind of drill. I don't really know how you describe it, but he looked really good, man. This guy moves really well. He is really shifty, a lot more nimble and shifty than what some people may think. A lot of people think he's a power back, but I think he's a balance back. He has a great blend of finesse and power as well. So without a doubt, he's going to be the workhorse back for Pittsburgh going into this year. And like I mentioned a couple of my videos ago, I said that the Steelers are going to make it to the playoffs. Najee Harris is going to have a big year. You got Benny Snell, who probably is going to be RB2 on this roster. He was pretty solid at times, but he really isn't the threat catching the ball out of the backfield, which kind of held him back. And he doesn't really have that burst, that breakaway speed. You got Anthony McFarland, who is more of your change of pace back, but he had some issues last year. He could never really get things quite going. You got Kalen Ballage, who you bring in, spent some time with the Chargers and whatnot. I think that he probably has a spot on this roster. Not really sure, because you do have Jalen Samuels, and I like what Jalen Samuels brings. He's like a Swiss Army knife. I think Jalen Samuels definitely is going to make this roster just because of the versatility. He can play all over the field. You can line him up at fullback, halfback, tight end. He can do a lot of things. You got Trey Edmunds, the brother of Terrell Edmunds, more of a special teamers, and you got fullback Derek Watt. So that's your halfback position. Quarterback, we already know Big Ben is going to be starting this year. The real competition is going to be who is going to end up winning that backup quarterback spot between Mason Rudolph, Joshua Dobbs, and Dwayne Haskins. Now, Dwayne Haskins had a really good mini camp from the reports that I've read and the blogs that I read who were there or were keeping close tabs on mini camp for the Steelers. Dwayne Haskins definitely stood out. He was getting a lot of praise from teammates. James Washington praised his arm strength. Big Ben said how much he admires Dwayne Haskins' mechanics. I actually made a video about Dwayne Haskins. Make sure to go ahead and check it out. But there were a lot of great reviews about Dwayne Haskins coming out of minicamp. Now, Mason Rudolph also has some good reviews as well. I still think that Mason Rudolph going in training camp is the second quarterback. But definitely keep your eye on this quarterback to competition, because it's really going to heat up. A lot of Steelers fans really love Joshua Dobbs, and I love Joshua Dobbs as well. He's one of my favorite college football players of all time. I love what this guy does, not only in the locker room, but also off the field as well. Joshua Dobbs is really athletic. He's the most athletic quarterback on the Steelers roster. Maybe if he makes the team, he can have some special packages designed for him. So the quarterback competition isn't really that much to watch when it comes to Big Ben's spot. We know his spot is secured, but that backup quarterback competition is going to be one of the biggest things to watch when it comes to position battles, because the backup quarterback spot just isn't going to be who's going to end up holding the clipboard sitting on the bench behind Big Ben, but it's also going to be to determine maybe if the Steelers have a future quarterback on this roster, rather that be Dobbs, Haskins, or Rudolph. So keep your eyes on that. Don't just look at the backup quarterback spot as the battle to see who's going to be holding the clipboard for Big Ben, but also look at it as the audition per se to see if the Steelers actually have a legitimate franchise quarterback when the Steelers have Big Ben hang up the cleats, which could be coming at the end of this year. Now, let's move on to tight end. Now, tight end is the last position that we have to talk about. Only really guy that I'm looking into is rookie Pat Friarmuth out of Penn State. He was drafted in the second round of this past year's NFL draft. A lot of people calling him Baby Gronk. I definitely see why. There's nothing that this guy cannot do. You can line him out wide and receiver in certain situations. He also can catch 50-50 balls. He's great in the red zone. I think that he's going to end up starting over Eric Ebron. But Eric Ebron, he gets a lot of criticism, and rightfully so, with all the drop passes and drop touchdowns that he had last season. But he wasn't that bad. He was decent. Okay, like cut Eric Ebron a little bit of slack there. He wasn't terrible. He was decent at times. He had some pretty nice games last year. Then you got Zach Gentry, who I think could end up being the third tight end on this roster. So moving on to the defense. You look at the interior of the defensive line for Pittsburgh. This is one of the deepest and one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. When you look at talent and depth, you got Cam Hayward, who, even though he's getting a little bit up there in age, he's still one of the best interior defensive linemen that we have in the NFL. He can play D tackle, he can play D, and he can play nose. You can maneuver him all around the defensive line. You got Tyson Alualu, who decided to come back with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was going to sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he ends up coming back with Pittsburgh. I like Tyson Alualu a lot because he is really good against the run there. You got Chris Wormley, who I want to see a lot of during the preseason and during training camp, because the Ravens traded him to Pittsburgh, and I was a little bit skeptical about this trade, because anytime you have a divisional rival, especially your arch enemy in the Baltimore Ravens, give you somebody in the trade, like, you just have to raise your eyebrows at. So I want to see a lot of Chris Wormley during the preseason. I want to see what this guy has, because I haven't really seen this guy play, being honest with you guys. You have Isaiah Buggs. Isaiah Buggs, man, I was looking forward to seeing him have an opportunity to compete for one of the starting jobs on this defensive line, but with Tyson Alualu coming back, he kind of gets pushed back to second string. But we do have a preseason this year, so we are going to see him in a lot of in-game action. I want to see what he brings to the table. I especially want to see what he brings from a pass rushing standpoint. Then at defensive end, you have Stephon Tuitt coming off a career season. You have Isaiah Loudermilk, who a lot of people are really high on. I want to see Isaiah Loudermilk in the preseason. So the three guys who you guys seem to be watching when it comes to the defensive line in the preseason and training camp is Chris Wormley, Isaiah Buggs, and Isaiah Loudermilk. And I think Isaiah Loudermilk may have one of the best last names I've ever said. Loudermilk. Moving on to edge. Now at edge, we have Alex Highsmith going into year 2, had a really solid rookie season despite not playing in a lot of games in replace of the injured Bud Dupree, who is now playing with the Tennessee Titans. We don't need to talk too much about TJ Watt. We know he is one of the best 3 defensive players in all of the NFL. But after those two, that's really where the question lies. And one of the biggest questions on the defense side of the football for Pittsburgh is going to be who's going to be that third pass rusher. Now, there are rumors that Pittsburgh could look to sign a third pass rusher from free agency. They have had links to Justin Houston. So keep an eye on that. you got Quincy Rochet, who is a guy I like, me being a Miami Hurricane fan. He's not the most athletically gifted player, but he does have good technique, good fundamentals and whatnot. And if he can polish that up, I think he could definitely be a good rotational pass rusher that the Steelers are looking for. But you don't really have a lot of names after Hyde, Smith, and Watt. So during preseason, during training camp, I'm definitely going to have a heavy eye on who are going to be the next guys in when it comes to that second unit, that third unit, who can end up being that third pass rusher that the Steelers are looking for, because they don't have any depth outside of Highsmith and Watt there. So when those guys go down, the Steelers are going to be screwed there. Then at linebacker, you have Devin Bush coming back, who had his season cut short due to a season-ending injury. I'm looking forward to having him back. You have Robert Spillane, who was really good. I mean, really good. Like, Robert Spillane over-exceeded my expectations, because normally when you have a backup come in, you get backup production. But Robert Spillane, I think, is good enough that he could be a starter on a handful of NFL teams right now. So you have great depth when it comes to who's going to be playing inside linebacker. You also have Buddy Johnson, rookie linebacker out of Texas A&M. He's a really good tackler, but I don't really know how good he is in coverage. Now, right inside linebacker is another position that has a lot of uncertainty there, because it doesn't have uncertainty when it comes to talent. The talent definitely is there, but I definitely feel like we could see a position battle there, because Vince Williams, even though the Steelers brought him back, he is really up there in age and he's not good in coverage. So, and I know a lot of Steeler fans are going to disagree with that, but listen, I love Vince Williams a lot. He has been a very big leader on that Steelers defense over the last couple of seasons. But the guy is getting up there in age, man. Like, last year, there have been several games where teams literally were picking on him because how lackluster his play has been in pass coverage. But I love Vince Williams a lot, but I definitely feel like his job could be up for grabs. You have Marcus Allen, who was drafted a couple of years ago out of Penn State, converted safety into linebacker. I really want to see Isaiah. I really want to see Marcus Allen start, man. Like, I really feel like he could be a stud if given the right opportunity, man. Like, Marcus Allen, he's going to be great in coverage, has great speed. Like, I really want to see Marcus Allen win this starting job. You also have Useless Gilbert there, but me personally, I really feel like Marcus Allen has a really good shot to end up starting over Vince Williams this year. And I know it may be a little bit of reach. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Vince Williams start once again, but I really want to see Marcus Allen start, man. Like, I really think that Marcus Allen could be a better upgrade at that inside linebacker spot than Vince Williams, because how good he is in coverage, being a converted safety, playing safety in college. So I really want to see Marcus Allen start there, man, at that other inside linebacker position. Moving on to cornerback. Now, cornerback, there is a lot of talent there, and I'm so excited about the cornerback competition heading into training camp preseason. We know that Joe Hayden is going to be the number one corner on this roster. He has been a top 10 cornerback over the last 2 seasons. He played very good once again, despite being up there in age. You have James Pierre, who is a guy who Steeler fans have been talking about a lot. Outside of Najee Harris, James Pierre has been receiving the second most attention. He had a really good training camp last year when you had only 1 month of training camp due to COVID. He made his presence felt, man. He was an undrafted rookie free agent last year coming out of FAU. He had a really good playoff game against the Cleveland Browns where he got some reps in, not only at special teams, but he also had some reps there at outside corner as well. I believe that he is going to end up winning the second cornerback job. He's going to end up replacing Steven Nelson, who was released, who is currently a free agent right now. I love James Pierre a lot. You got rookie Mark Gilbert out of Duke, who had a really good mini camp, and a lot of people were really high on Mark Gilbert. Some people think he has inserted himself into this conversation when it comes to being in the mix to start at that second cornerback spot. Then you have Justin Lane, who probably would be the betting favorite to win the second cornerback job. I still like James Pierre more. Then you got Shakur Brown, rookie slot. Is expected to be Cam Sutton there, but Antoine Brooks Jr., from what I've read in the report, he has kind of inserted himself into that slot competition because he has some versatility there. He can play safety. He can also play slot there. So you have a guy who's very versatile. So keep an eye on Antoine Brooks Jr. Like, he can do a lot. I think the Steelers are going to utilize him a lot during the preseason. Well, I hope that they do. So I want to see him utilize a little bit at linebacker and nickel and dime packages. I want to see him play in slot. I want to see him play in safety. Like, I think Antoine Brooks Jr. has a really good versatile skill set that he can play all kinds of positions on this defense. Then at free safety, we already know you have Minka Fitzpatrick there. You also have Antoine Brooks Jr. right behind him. You have Trey Norwood. Strong safety Trey Edmunds coming off a career year. I don't really think he's going to get challenged at all. There were some rumors that maybe Pittsburgh could sign Malik Hooker, but those have kind of died down. Then punter's the last position battle that we have to talk about. Jordan Berry, rookie Presley Harvin, the big punter out of Georgia Tech. Some people think there could be a position battle there. I still think Jordan Berry wins out. But this is it for my Pittsburgh Steelers 2021 training camp preview. My 5 players to watch are going to be James Pierre. I'm going to be watching Antoine Brooks Jr. I'm also going to be watching Marcus Allen, Isaiah Loudermilk. And on the offense side of the football, I am going to be watching wide receiver Anthony Johnson. So let me know how you guys feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers going into training camp. What are some positions that you guys are going to be watching? What are some players that you guys have a lot of interest in? Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content. And thanks for watching.